What's up, guys, and welcome to another worst to best video. Today we are looking at the mustache man himself, the samurai Cyan. Mustache man child, I believe in you. And honestly, his sword tech isn't exactly good. There are a few uses for it, but due to long charge or cast times, there tends to be a lot of options in the game that are just better. But we will pretend for this list that he has nothing else and you are forced to use him. Even the Pixel Remaster version, there is a charge up time, it just happens after the selection instead of a charge up bar like what they have in the Super Nintendo. Because it works so drastically different, but somehow also the same, we will look equally between the SNES, GBA, and PR. This was a tough list, so go easy on me in this one. Just another note, guys, 77.6 people that are watching are not subscribed. So I want to thank all the new faces for coming in. Thank you. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on the bottom so you can get notified of more of these lists. That being said, let's get into it. Starting off our list is Sword Tech 5, Dragon. Even though it does help HP and MP refill, it is based off of Cyan's spell power, which is absolutely atrocious. And the spell power for the move itself is only 12. For reference, Osmos has a spell power of 26 and only costs 1 MP, and is a spell you can learn decently early. It will also heal undead enemies as the heal/damage will be reversed, so be careful with that. Overall, by the time you learn it at level 24, you'll have better options within the character and your party overall to deal with the minimal amounts of healing you get from this ability. You will get it before Floating Continent, so we can say a 4 out of 10 for availability, but the usefulness is pretty low at, I'd say, a 2 out of 10. Sure, there is use, but only if you want to see a different animation, essentially. 3 out of 10 ability. Following up, Dragon is another skill that has some niche situations, but overall, I don't think has a lot of merit. This is Sword Tech 3, Tiger. Even though it halves the HP of the enemy and inflicts sap, which is insanely strong on the Pixel Remaster, it doesn't work on enemies immune to death, and there's a decent amount of them. You get this move pretty early on at level 12, however, at this point in the game, you can mostly 1 or 2 shot most enemies with their normal abilities. This renders this ability mostly useless early game, and later on it could be useful, or you could use abilities that just deal higher amounts of damage with good strategy and setup. The choice is yours. It becomes available early for a solid 9 out of 10, but falls off hard with the 2 out of 10 usefulness, which I rank quite a bit heavier than availability. This move comes in for me at a 4 out of 10. Sword Tech number 8, or Oblivion, is an interesting one. It has over twice the hit rate of Doom, so it will hit way more often than it doesn't. It is unlocked at level 70, or more often doing Cyan's dream scenario in the World of Ruin. For where you get this and the usefulness of it, it's probably not going to do you too much outside the tier fights and random encounter grinding. You won't be getting this until World of Ruin either way you go about it. Not a whole lot to say about this ability other than it's pretty cool. It stalls enemies' death counters, which means basically if they have a death counter attack, they're not going to do it. So it does make it a bit safer to use if you're in a bad situation. Good example would be on tier 1. This skill takes quite some time to get, and it does have an atrocious charge time, making it a 2 out of 10 availability, and the usefulness isn't horrendous, so I'll give it a 5 out of 10. Overall, this move comes out at another 4 out of 10. Rounding off the bottom half of our list is the first Sword Tech, Fang. Pretty strong ability with a power of 120. Obviously untargetable, as none of the Bushidos are targetable. You start off with this ability at level 1, and since it ignores row and defense, it keeps Cyan safe in the back row while still doing some pretty dummy damage. This ability does go off his strength, which is good since Cyan has a terrible magic stat and a decent strength stat. This move can be a good boss killer early on, especially with its low charge up time. Availability literally can't get better at a level 1 skill, making it a 10 out of 10. And it's quite useful in a lot of spots depending on enemy defense. I give the usefulness a 5 out of 10, giving this ability overall 6 out of 10. Sword Tech 6 Eclipse is our number 4, and honestly, it's a decently interesting one. It's a World of Ruin get, if we're following the leveling guide, learned at level 34. This move is interesting because it ignores split damage, is based off of spell power, which makes it poopy. It is unblockable and even inflicts stop on all enemies with a hit rate of 140, which is quite high. So it is mostly a stop on all cast that consumes no MP for the cost of a large charge up time. But the chances to use a stop on all while everyone else has something queued up can come in quite in handy depending on the situation. This would even help on some bosses like Demon who are not immune to stop. This spell comes in a bit late, hurting it with a 6 out of 10 availability, but the usefulness, while somewhat niche, can help you really get control of a battle, so I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 usefulness. Overall, we're going to give it 6 out of 10. This may throw some people off, but I think the 7th sword tech, Tempest, is only a top 3 ability. The biggest issue is it comes in really late at level 44, so odds are if you want any good use out of it, you will go to Cyan's Dream scenario. He attacks 4 times with a tremendously long charge up time. It has a battle power of 70 and ignores defense, which does make it pretty enticing. It usually ends up being the player's choice throughout the back end of the game because of how good it is. I would say this is the main reason anyone would actually want to use Cyan even. This makes the usefulness a 10 out of 10, even though the availability is a little rough with the 7 out of 10 even if you go to Cyan's Dream. Probably a 4.5 out of 10 if you go the leveling route, since it comes in at 44, which is almost endgame level. A solid 8 out of 10 Bushido in my book still. Number 2, funny enough, is Sword Tech number 2, Sky. And this move is greatly different depending on your version. In the Pixel Remaster and the GBA version, it's somewhat okay. In the Pixel Remaster version, it works okay as the counter, but as soon as you get your ATB back, Cyan leaves the counterattack phase and you have to reuse it again. So it's not that good unless you're using it in some very niche situations. In the GBA version, you can leave it up and he'll eventually counter. However, in the Super Nintendo version, this move is completely broken. It has a very glitched state which can let you do things like, well, this. It's a very interesting thing that even though it's a move based off of his magic stat, because why would we want strength abilities on a strength character? It ignores defense and is unblockable as it's a counter. You get it super early for a 10 out of 10 accessibility. In the Pixel Remaster, it's kinda useless, so I'd give the usefulness around like a 2 out of 10. But in the Super Nintendo version, it's a super sick move with a lot of fun attributes and situations you can use it in, so I'm gonna give it a 9 out of 10. So even averaging out all of this, I'd still call it a good 8 out of 10 ability because I am totally not SNES biased at all. Coming at the top of our list is the worst version of Tempest, and that is Sword Tech 4, Flurry. So why is the worst version of Tempest at the top of the list? It's the same move with a little less attack power, and it doesn't ignore defense. So why would it be in here? Where it does shine is how early you get it. This is the Bushido move in my opinion. You get it at level 15, so it's quite early in the game. It's a great boss killer as you get 4 uncontested attacks that can get you through a lot of stuff, from both the Kefkin and Narsh section, up to the floating continent if you're using Cyan, and that includes bosses and trash mobs along the way. This is the reason why you'd put Cyan in your party, along with Dispatch for majority of the game. Accessibility isn't perfect, but boy is it pretty good with an 8 out of 10, and you'll be using this move a lot. 9 out of 10 ability for a total score of 8.5 out of 10. So that's the list concluded on the Bushido abilities. Like we said earlier, not exactly a great tool to use, but if you were doing something like a natural magic run or some other challenge run, these skills can get you out of some sticky situations. Unfortunately, a lot of them are based off of Cyan's worst stat, which is magic. Likely, you'll probably be teaching him magic. It might be worth boosting his magic on some level ups so that the skills are a bit better. But that's up to you. For this guy, I'm off to make another list video. Don't forget to hit that silly subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next one.